On Friday the 13th, in March of 2015, the largest storm ever recorded in the South Pacific devastated one of the poorest nations in the world. The international community's response was overwhelming. Both governments and NGOs around the world mobilized efforts to get aid to the islands of Vanuatu. But there's been a problem.
To the international community, I must say thank you. Aid arrived so quick from Australia and New Zealand. We're out at the airport on Sunday, loading planes out on the tarmac when the Air Force craft came in. What are we now, on Thursday?
Yeah, Thursday.
Those goods are still sitting in warehouses, which is a bit frustrating.
We saw the aeroplanes are flying, the Navy planes are flying all over the place. We hear that the aids are coming, we hear that the donations are going to help us, but we didn't even see anything else.
Well, from my perspective, from what I've seen and observed, is that a lot of people are making a lot of decisions about getting stuff here, how they're going to get it here, what they're going to bring here. So decisions are being made all over the planet, most closely in Australia and New Zealand. Decisions have been made. But what it seems to be, the only thing that's missing is a decision to be made here about where and what and when. The when we can do right now.
Hi, I'm Harold. I've been living in Vanuatu for 8 years. I've been told we have a problem that can't be solved. But I was raised in Texas. And when I tell my daddy, I'd say, "Daddy, I can't do it, I can't do it." My daddy would look at me and he'd say, "Boy, that fella can't. Let me tell you something about that fella can't. He never could do nothing. And boy, your name ain't can't. You can do it, boy. Just try again." My dad was right. Can't never could do nothing. I don't believe we have a problem that can't be solved. I've been told it's endemic in aid response, that during the first 2 weeks, things can't happen. Everything happens really slowly. But I believe we can change this problem. Thus, I've tried to put together a presentation to try and create solutions for the problem.
There are going to be more and more of the world's biggest storms in our future, and we all know that. Cyclone Pam can teach us some lessons about the incredible compassion that comes from the international community and how it can be put to better use in the first few weeks after a weather disaster.
All I do on the radio these days is just tell the people to, get over and start working and things. And we know that all the stuff are here, all the reliefs are here, but the people are really desperate to know when and how are they going to receive those reliefs.
I arrived in Port Vila from Santo, where I live, which was basically unscathed. I was met with many, many friends that were all sharing the same frustrations. They were ready to go.
Well, as you say, we've got 2 vessels. One's immediately ready to go, fueled and whatnot, but we're just waiting for some direction.
We're at Freight Logistics. We're ready to go. We've been ready to go since Sunday. We can't release anything until we get the okay from the authorities.
I had friends with boats, friends with planes, friends with helicopters that were all ready to help.
We haven't been contacted by anybody. I know there's supplies on the ground, relief supplies.
And have you contacted any of the officials to, present that your vessels are here?
Yeah, my office, I was in Santo until yesterday. We gave them our satellite phone number because there's no mobile network up there. And I haven't been contacted by anybody. I assume they're preparing something, but I don't think we're the only boat. I think there's a number of boats that are ready to move. We just need to be told where to go and what to load. Now, if I haven't had any communication or any direction, I have no choice. But I can't just leave the boat sitting around doing nothing, waiting and waiting.
We've been mobilising stuff left, right and centre from the airport to different places in Vila. We're all good to go. It can all happen right now. It should be moving to where it needs to be, not waiting for somebody to make a choice, one more decision about getting it there.
So all of my friends who are in a position to begin distributing the international aid were very frustrated waiting for the government and the NGOs to just open the doors of the containers and let them take stuff where it needed to go. But there was one group of my friends who didn't let that stand in the way. As a matter of fact, a lot of my friends just began buying groceries and putting them in their pickup trucks and taking them out to the villages. There is a local ambulance charity-funded service which began taking food and water in the ambulance as they went to villages to check on the health issues. That ambulance service, called Pro-Medical, became a huge success story, despite the fact that in the beginning they were actually threatened with deportation for usurping the aid process by taking aid to places before it had been approved. Now, 5 days after they were reaching villages where no aid had arrived, no water, no tarpaulins, no hygiene kits, nothing that the international community, all of you guys, sent was getting anywhere. So they were taking it into their own hands. It's been labeled renegade aid, and now it's finally been recognized as a huge, huge success story.
Hi guys, here we are at Pro-Medical, the main office of Renegade Aid. It's been labeled, which means that this is all the private sector. These are individuals and companies' trucks, and they're all volunteering right now in a very organized manner to deliver water and food and water filters and little kits with saws and hammers and nails out to the villages. Everything that has been donated to Pro-Medical, which is a local charity ambulance service that has become the headquarters for all of the private sector's attempts to get aid out to the villages. It seems as though some of the international aid is a little bit bottled up in paperwork, so these people are making actions happen. They are getting water and getting food out to the remote villages that have yet to be seen by some of the international aid organizations. So everyone is very, very thankful out in the villages for these guys' work and what they're putting together. It's been labeled Renegade Aid, and yay for Renegade Aid. Thanks.
Today I'm going to about 4 villages.
And we're getting out to these east side of villages which haven't had anything delivered yet. So again, first response.
We just found out that a lot of the people on the other side of Afate are in desperate need of food and water. So today we're loading up the truck. I think we've got about a couple of 100 litres of water, a few slabs of canned food, and we're going to distribute that to the needy up there.
Just after Ferrari Road Market, see if I can get there towards the old mine. Otherwise I'm going to a Pankapang. If not, I'm going to go and meet the truck that's broken down, pick up the water from there.
Cool. And what are you delivering?
Food, water, tarpaulins. I have medic supplies if required.
They started out with chainsaws and medical kits, but it became patently obvious in the very beginning that the most important thing to be delivered was water. So more and more trucks came with water. People volunteered to clean and sanitize buckets. There was a few donations of bigger water, 200-liter water tanks to throw in the back of trucks. And Pro-Medical began organizing all of the expat community to get water out to the villages because they were having real problems with diarrhea and pink eye and other medical problems associated with dirty water.
We're seeing a huge amount of red eye, skin rash, diarrhea, a range of minor injuries, as well as flu breakouts, other unknown diseases that we can't diagnose as yet. A huge amount of hungry and dehydrated people. We've covered a huge amount of ground over the last few days and been first response out to a number of different villages. And out east is inexcusable why people aren't out there. It's quite depressing, to be honest. It's sort of hit us and knocked us around a bit coming back because it's close, 25, 30 k's away, and things haven't got through. So it's very alarming.
I'm already on antibiotics, so I can only think about some of the communities out there that need some of these hygiene kits and the like. Little scratches are turning festering, and we want to avoid that as much as possible. The longer it delays, the more chance there is for ill health, sickness, infections and the like.
In the meantime, what I'm trying to do is, there's an old adage that you can go 4 or 5 days without food, you can only go 24 to 36 hours without water. So that's my priority, is getting water out to people. Yes, we've gone through a disaster, but the next disaster is the medical conditions that happen.
It's a little bit frustrating when we've got neighbours without roofs, water, hygiene, but it really would be a beneficial thing to get some of this aid out to the community without too many more delays.
Delays, creating long-term health risk and immediate suffering. But why? Why was all the aid sitting in containers on the wharf and piled up at the airport until the warehouses were bursting?
Now, the reports we've had with the villages and the assessments we've made is that people with clipboards and pens have got there, but they haven't brought anything with them. And now people are really getting angry. At one point, we had people getting quite angry with us because they thought we were just taking photos and we were more of the same people with clipboards and pens. But we brought out water, we brought out fuel, we brought out supplies, just small amounts we could get our hands on. And that just keeps morale up, that keeps them hoping, keeps them thinking that, okay, we survived, but now we've got to live. They said people have come a few days ago and over the last few days, and they said there'll be at least a week before they can deliver aid.
And we've tried with the community leaders approaches to Red Cross. They're in a position they didn't even have forms to fill out, so we organised copies across the road. I did copies at the office here, took them out to the community disaster management office. Came out later that day and they were told not to complete those, and subsequently put out some other forms which have been completed by Pango community today. They have to go to a provincial office to get approved, and then aid will start being distributed.
The need for assessments in order to fairly distribute the aid seemed to be what was holding everything up.
It's been hard, having these ups and downs and just seeing the trucks go past and not stopping it, or just having a pen and a paper and not having anything just to say, look, keep going, keep trying, keep working hard, we're trying to get you. And that's not the message they're receiving. They're receiving, we'll see you in a bit, maybe, if you're lucky.
And that just seems to be where the stumbling blocks are. So if they can get their act together a little bit and let us move, we want to be getting things going out of our warehouse because we've got more stuff coming in.
And as a media person, we don't have any resource or anything for anyone coming around to tell us what to do.
Is it your opinion that it's the assessment process that is slowing everything up?
I have to be careful in this part because I know the process which they're trying to achieve, and I really understand and I believe in the process what they're trying to achieve. But you need to give the people hope. You need to give them the right information. If they're telling them straight information as soon as they get there, saying, we'll be back at this time with this stuff, with this equipment, what else do you need? Give the people some hope.
The scary part is that everybody wants to go and do something and help, but without some direction, we risk boats going, or too many boats going to one place that doesn't need any help, and not enough or no boats going to another place that does need the help. So someone just needs to take control, assess the situation.
Everybody here understands that there has to be a process, that there has to be a legitimate, controlled delivery system. But for some reason it seems as though that is the major hold-up in actually getting water and basic necessities to the villagers.
Listen up, let's make a decision, get it moving. We know it's got to move it.
So the initial issue was the assessment process. Each aid organization had to send their own representative out to assess what they could do in any given community. The government was sending its representatives out to determine how to fairly distribute the aid to the communities that needed it the most, or were the largest or the most effective. And the assessment process became so bottled down in paperwork and decision making that it was a week later, on a Saturday morning, when the Prime Minister of the country finally said, roll stuff out, that they began the first rollout. Until then, it had been pretty much strictly renegade aid. At least that's the word on the street. Because there's another glitch. There's a glitch in information available to the public to know what's going on. As Peter said, people need hope. As Lay said, we need somebody to tell us what to tell the people. So there was a communication issue between the aid organizations and the National Disaster Management Office and the community. But there was also a communication problem for the assessments, because as soon as the storm came through, all of the cell phone towers were knocked down, and we rely completely on cell phones these days. So the assessment process itself was inhibited by the lack of any way of communicating with the islands. And then there's the huge logistical issue of finding the boats and the planes and the personnel and the equipment in order to deliver the goods. So there we have three very clear-cut issues: cumbersome assessments, communication, and the infrastructure for delivery of the goods. So now we're getting to solutions. Assessments. Assessments need communication from the islands, the devastated areas, to find out what needs to go where. Maybe an old solution for that. Maybe shortwave radio. The ham operators around the world could contribute ham radios. They actually already have a setup in their framework for disaster relief. Communication. There are websites already in place that are meant for disaster relief organizations to be able to post everything that's going on. And that way the public and the other aid organizations can assess where and what is going from each and every aid organization. Better use of that technology could help. And infrastructure for delivery. It was proven by renegade aid that the private sector is well equipped for first response. They own all the trucks. They've got all the timber yards. They know how people work here. They know what and where and how to get things to places. And yet they were held out of the program until the very, very, very end. In fact, we're so frustrated by that they just did it on their own. So how can we incorporate the private sector into the international aid organizations and the government response to a disaster like this? That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to come up with solutions. I think we can.